Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Brigadier Aruna ma'am and her fantastic team for giving me an opportunity to talk on a subject which is very close to my heart. Please accept the greetings from one of the oldest hospitals of armed forces that has got the honor to witness the first war of independence. In the next 20 minutes or so, I shall make an endeavor to summarize the results of the studies regarding the safety of the use of HRT, address the controversies that still surrounds it, and talk about the current thinking about its suitability so that one is able to take a conscious call whether the HRT is a boon or bane. So let's talk about the controversies that still surrounds against use of HRT. HRT was first available in 1940s but became more widely used in 1960s, creating a revolution in the management of the menopause. It was prescribed commonly to menopausal women for the relief of their symptoms such as hot flushes, night sweats, sleep disturbances, psychological and genitourinary problems, and for the prevention of osteoporosis. However, in the year 1990, two of the largest study of HRT users were undertaken. One was a clinical RCT done in the USA called WHI or Women Health Initiative Study, and another was an observational questionnaire study conducted in the UK called MW study or Million Women Study. The results of these two studies were published during 2002 and 2003 and raised concerns regarding the safety of HRT that revolved mainly around two main issues. One, increased risk of breast cancer, and two, increased risk of heart disease. The result of the studies received wide publicity, creating panic amongst doctors and its users. Many doctors stopped prescribing HRT and many women abandoned HRT immediately with the return of their menopausal symptoms. The number of women taking HRT fell by 66%. It should be appreciated that in a surprising turnabout, subsequent publication of the full WHI result in 2020 suggested that the apparent increased risk of breast cancer was only found in those cases who had taken HRT before entering the study. Moreover, it has given a clearer perspective of cardiovascular complications too. Still, the ghost of WHI haunts us, and eligible women are being denied the opportunity of improved quality of life during their menopausal years. Now I shall give you the evidence-based safety account of the use of HRT. Rest assured that I'm not going to bombard you with thousands of data and statistics and make this topic mundane and boring. Vasomotor symptoms, which include hot flushes and night sweats, are the commonest symptom affecting 75% of the menopausal women. This can disturb sleep and can aggravate symptoms of tiredness, depressed mood, and anxiety. 32 randomized controlled trials have reported that estrogen replacement remains the most effective treatment of these symptoms. As per NICE guidelines, both transdermal and oral HRT are effective treatment options. The optimum dose and duration of HRT should be decided according to the severity of a woman's history as well as her response to therapy. Women are at increased risk of mood changes, including depression and anxiety. Those with a history of premenstrual syndrome and postnatal depression are at particular risk. Observational data suggest that the short-term use of HRT may improve mood and depressive symptoms during the menopausal transition and in the early menopause. However, women with perimenopausal depression are often intolerant to progestogens. Hence, it is recommended to use micronized progesterone instead of more androgenic progestogens, which has higher side effects. Estrogen replacement, systemic or topical, may improve sexual function. Systemic estrogen replacement can improve sexual desire and libido. In addition, topical vaginal estrogen replacement can improve dyspareunia secondary to vaginal atrophy through its proliferative effect on the vulval and vaginal epithelium. The administration of systemic testosterone has been shown to result in significant improvement in sexual function, including sexual desire and orgasm. Symptoms related to urogenital atrophy have been reported to be experienced by approximately 50% of the postmenopausal women. Topical vaginal estrogen treatment has been shown to be effective in improving symptoms related to vaginal atrophy, such as vaginal dryness and superficial dyspareunia. Estrogen also has a proliferative effect on bladder and urethral epithelium and may relieve symptoms of urinary frequency and urgency. It also possibly reduces the incidence of recurrent UTIs in women with urogenital atrophy. Low-dose vaginal estrogen preparations can be used by symptomatic women and continued for as long as it is required. Current evidence suggests that the estrogen alone HRT is associated with little or no change in the risk of breast cancer, while combined HRT can be associated with an increased risk. Please note this. This increased risk with combined HRT appears to be duration dependent and type of progesterone dependent. It means risk is more after more than 5 years of age use and with synthetic progesterone. However, this risk is low in both medical and statistical terms, particularly compared to other modifiable risk factors such as obesity and alcohol intake. This fact, I think, should be taken in the context of the overall benefits obtained from using HRT. Vaginal estrogen is not associated with an increased risk of breast cancer. Large observational trial data suggest that the micronized progesterone and dydrogesterone are likely to be associated with a lower risk of invasive breast cancer compared to that noted with other progestogens. Unopposed estrogen therapy increases the risk of endometrial cancer, and this risk is largely avoided by use of combined estrogen and progesterone therapy that we all know. Long-term use of sequential combined HRT for more than 5 years may be associated with a small increase in the risk of endometrial cancer. Continuous combined estrogen and progestogen, however, has neutral effect on risk of endometrial cancer compared to placebo. Recent evidence from the collaborative group on the hormonal factors demonstrated that there may be slight increase in the risk of developing serous and endometrioid ovarian cancer associated with HRT use. However, this risk is small in both medical and statistical terms and should be taken in the context of overall benefits and risk balance for the individual woman. The WHI trial showed that the risk of colorectal cancer was reduced in the combined estrogen and progestogen arm. The risk reduction of combined estrogen and progestogen, however, reduced after stopping HRT over 13 years. However, the use of estrogen alone is not associated with increased or reduced risk. With regard to cardiovascular risk and HRT, recent data has been reassuring. Cochrane analysis suggests that the HRT started before the age of 60 or within 10 years of the menopause is associated with a reduction in atherosclerosis progression, coronary heart disease, and death from cardiovascular causes as well as all causes mortality. Cochrane data analysis as well as the long-term follow-up data from the Women's Health Initiative showed no increase in cardiovascular events, cardiovascular mortality, or all-cause mortality in women who initiated HRT more than 10 years after the menopause. The traditional oral HRT increases the risk of venous thromboembolism 2 to 4-fold and is greatest in the first year after initiation. With oral estrogens, the risk depends on the dose and type of estrogen, with conjugated equine estrogen more prothrombotic than the estradiol. Additional factors might further increase the risk. For example, older age and raised BMI are less common but significant factors such as thrombophilia. The single most important determinant risk relating to HRT, please note, is route of administration. There is a compelling evidence from large observational studies and meta-analysis together with lab studies that transdermal HRT does not increase the risk of venous thromboembolism above that in non-users and is associated with a lower risk than oral estrogens. The type of progestogen significantly affects venous thromboembolism risk, with micronized progesterone and dydrogesterone conferring a lower risk compared to that with other synthetic progestogens. Observational studies have yielded conflicting results regarding the risk of a stroke with HRT. The risk of a stroke is age-related, and overall the risk is low in women under the age of 60. Oral estradiol is likely to be associated with a small increase in the risk. The effect is likely to be close related, and the lowest effective dose should therefore be prescribed. Transdermal estradiol is unlikely to increase the risk of a stroke above the woman's own baseline risk. Consideration should therefore be given to administering estradiol transdermally in women with risk factors or those over the age of 60. The type of progestogens used in HRT may have an effect on the risk of a stroke. Micronized progesterone or dydrogesterone are better options. On current evidence, HRT should not be recommended for the primary or secondary prevention of stroke. HRT should be considered the first-line therapeutic intervention for the prevention and treatment of osteoporosis in women with premature ovarian insufficiency and menopausal women below 60 years of age, particularly those with menopausal symptoms. The bone protective effect of estrogen is dose and duration related, and the bone preserving effect of HRT declines after discontinuation of treatment. This fact is noteworthy. Hormonal status can affect the cognitive function, and over the years there has been conflicting evidence regarding the risk of dementia and HRT use. Based on correct evidence, women should be reassured that the HRT is unlikely to increase the risk of dementia or to have a detrimental effect on cognitive function in women initiating HRT before the age of 60. However, HRT should not be initiated for the sole purpose of improving cognitive function or reducing the risk of dementia in the postmenopausal women. HRT is strongly recommended in these young women, even if asymptomatic. This is needed to control menopausal symptoms and maintain sexual function, as well as to minimize the risk of cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, and possibly reduce the risk of cognitive impairment associated with premature ovarian insufficiency or early menopause. So what is the consensus for the use of HRT today? The latest WHI report 2020 is quite encouraging. The balance of benefit to harm always needs to be assessed, but appears to have shifted favorably for HRT. The HRT doses, regime, and duration should be individualized after discussing the benefits and risks with each patient. An annual evaluation of the patient improves the risk and safety profile, hence it is recommended. No arbitrary limit should be set on duration of use. HRT prescribed before the age of 60 or within 10 years of the menopause has a favorable benefit-risk profile. Micronized progesterone and dydrogesterone are unlikely to increase the risk of venous thromboembolism and are associated with lower risk of breast cancer. Transdermal administration of estradiol is unlikely to increase the risk of venous thrombosis or stroke above that in non-users, so it should be used in cases of risk of venous thromboembolism. If HRT is to be used in women over 60 years of age, lower dose is to be prescribed, preferably with a transdermal route of estradiol administration. Women with POI and early menopause should be encouraged to use HRT at least until the age of the menopause. Finally, I would like to conclude by saying that it's high time that we come out of the ungrounded fear of breast cancer, cardiovascular complications, and venous thromboembolism and start using HRT in indicated cases with due diligent monitoring to improve the quality of life of a postmenopausal female. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for your patience hearing.